Succession is a very important matter in the royal family. The line of succession delegates who will inherit the throne and become the next king or queen of Great Britain.
I think he will be very much a king who knows his own mind.
A line that has changed. A line that is determined by descent, gender, legitimacy, and religion. On the 2nd of June 1953, the world rejoiced on the coronation of a new queen. 7 decades on, it's almost impossible to imagine that there was a time when she may have not even taken up the mantle of monarch.
The coronation of the Queen was a huge and very significant affair. It was a 3-hour ceremony. It was, everybody recalls, the coldest June day that had ever happened, and it was pouring with rain. The army was enormous. Every sort of foot or 2 feet along the pavement, there was what they call street liners, which were soldiers, and they were all really cold, and they were given sugar lumps infused with brandy to sort of keep them going. And the ceremony itself was very, very serious and very religious and very dramatic. We won't ever have a ceremony quite like that again.
She never intended to become queen. But everything changed from the age of 10, when her uncle, Edward VIII, abdicated and created the greatest British crisis in centuries.
I don't believe that Princess Elizabeth was really aware of what it meant when her Uncle David, she called him, abdicated. She knew something happened because everyone was in a terrible state, and she knew eventually that they would have to move house, and she knew that her father would be king and her mother would be queen, but I don't think the actual real sort of dimensions of her situation, she was too young to understand that.
The line of succession to the throne was then taken by King George VI, Elizabeth's father. Her father reigned for 15 years, then died in 1952, 7 years after the end of World War II. They maintained an extremely close relationship, and this was a perfect example of a happy childhood.
Princess Elizabeth was very close to her father, always was. I mean, he absolutely adored Margot, Princess Margaret, and Margaret made him laugh, but he was very proud of Elizabeth. And he saw that sense of duty. He spotted it very early on, and he knew that she would be just the sort of queen that the country needed. And he tried to do as much with her as he could, because of course there was the war years took up a great chunk of her so-called childhood. He didn't actually spend a huge amount of his life with his daughters, but whenever he could, he did. And he taught her to shoot. He took her duck flighting. He did kind of boyish things with her, because he had 2 daughters. And he was just so proud of her. So I think they were, especially for the time, they were a very close family. We may not think that now, viewing them from our era, but then they were a close family.
She was very much an unlikely queen. Neither father nor daughter were prepared to become the monarch. She went from an aristocratic life to suddenly being put in the spotlight.
She was very, very shy. She wasn't a great conversationalist. In fact, she didn't really have the necessary attributes to enter this, world of men, but she had this extraordinary dedication to duty. She was determined that she was going to do it right, and she had no training. She just did what her father did. And that kind of, in a way, suited her character, because she could learn as she went along, but without doing anything extraordinary. So she just did dutifully, really, what she was told most of her life. And I think it was really only in her latter years that we saw the essence of the Queen's character. We saw her humour, we saw her laughter, we saw her acerbic wit. It was always there, but she belonged to an era where public persona had to be completely straight. So we never saw that side of her, so we assumed that she was very dull and boring. But she wasn't, but she was very shy, and it had been drilled into her that you mustn't show emotion in public.
It is important to note that at this time, if Elizabeth had a brother, he would have taken up the throne before Elizabeth. Before 2013, the succession rules followed male preference primogeniture, which meant that sons have priority over daughters. But from 2013, this was now made to be absolute primogeniture, which now simply follows birth order. Elizabeth was only 25 years of age when she came to the throne, upon the death of her father in 1952.
When Princess Elizabeth received the news of the death of her father, she went into shock, as you would. I mean, she was shocked by his death because she thought he was getting better. Everybody within the family thought the king was getting better. He was at Sandringham, he'd been out shooting, he'd had a wonderful day, he was with friends, and as Princess Margaret said much later in an interview, he died just as he was getting well. But of course he wasn't really getting well, they thought he was. So it was a huge shock to her. And it meant the end of her life as she knew it. She had 2 little children, a naval husband. They just started out, really, on their married life. They just moved into Clarence House, which was their first real home. He was going to be posted to Malta. Their life looked really rosy, and suddenly, basically, it ended.
She reigned over England for a record-breaking 70 years and 214 days, officially the longest reigning monarch in British history, and saw massive change to the world. She married Philip Mountbatten in 1947. Together, they had 4 children: Charles, Anne, Andrew, and Edward. She became Queen Regnant of 32 sovereign states during her lifetime, and only 15 at the time of her death. Elizabeth was served by more than 170 prime ministers. She has been on many historic visits and meetings that have included state visits to China in 1986, to Russia in 1994, and to the Republic of Ireland in 2011. She also had meetings with 5 popes. Her coronation took place in 1953. She has lived on to celebrate her silver, golden, diamond, and platinum jubilees in 1977, 2002, 2012, and 2022. Though Queen Elizabeth II was the perfect example of a role model, her husband, Philip, showed a keen interest in voluntary services and in the Royal Navy. This meant that as their 4 children grew, they had extremely loving parents throughout their childhood.
She very rarely confided in anybody. She was a very complete person.
So let me just now repeat that statement from the royal household, which we have received in the last few minutes. It reads: "The Queen died peacefully at Balmoral this afternoon. The King and the Queen Consort will remain at Balmoral this evening and will return to London tomorrow." And so the reign of Elizabeth II comes to a close after 70 years at the age of 96. Her son Charles is now king.
I think that probably the shock of his mother's very sudden death and him becoming king, when these things happen, you go into slight shock, so you act quite mechanically. It sort of protects you in a way. So I think he wouldn't have been overwhelmed at that moment. He would have been very emotional, but he would have kept it all in check. So I think he dealt with it on a very professional level, which would be really the only way to deal with something of that enormity happening to you.
On behalf of all my family, I can only offer the most sincere and heartfelt thanks for your condolences and support. They mean more to me than I can ever possibly express. And to my darling Mama, as you begin your last great journey to join my dear late Papa, I want simply to say this: thank you.
When I first met Prince Charles, I remember thinking, wow, he was wonderful, really charming, really just made you feel so relaxed and comfortable and so quick at putting you at ease. I mean, even though you're nervous and worried, he suddenly makes you feel not worried. You feel that you can have a conversation within reason about anything. Prince Charles is obviously, he's got his humour, but he's also got a compassionate side. He wants everyone to be happy. He wants everyone to enjoy what they're doing. And the fact that he worries about the little things is amazing.
Well, I always thought that Charles would make a wonderful king because he cares so much. He cares about his country, he cares about its heritage, he cares about the planet, and he cares about the people. And I think that that's really the attributes you need for a king. He is perfect.
He has been called a visionary in his creative and forward-thinking ideas. He grew up becoming passionate about the environment, for architecture, and for medicine. The monarch is head of the armed forces, and it has always been a tradition of the royal family that each and every member should engage in active service and lead by example, playing more than just a symbolic role. As a result, he is president to over 400 charities and organizations, and known as one of the most hard-working royals, alongside his sister Anne, the Princess Royal. As the longest-serving heir to the throne in British history, Charles has had plenty of time to build and develop the role of Prince of Wales. Throughout his life, he has faced many challenges. The reporting of the media chose to focus on the ups and downs of Charles's personal and romantic life. His marriage to Lady Diana Spencer was just the fairy tale the world had been waiting for, a dashing prince with his blushing bride. They kindled a family unit together, with sons William and Harry. However, the relationship between Charles and Diana was simply not built to last. They divorced in 1996, and Diana died in a car crash in 1997. Charles had always considered Camilla dear prior to meeting Diana. He reignited a flame with his long-term friend after Diana's death, and the two went on to marry in 2005. By this time, William and Harry were 23 and 20. Camilla is now beside Charles as Queen Consort, as per the wishes of Queen Elizabeth II. Charles and Camilla's relationship continues to remain strong, and this translates into their boys, who grow up working towards the role of monarch. Although this family unit continues to build, William and Harry have made it clear that Camilla will never fill the spot that their dear mother Diana left behind.
What he would want to do is be complementary to his mother. So his reign will be complementary to hers. In a way, he's the sandwich between his mother and his son. And William represents the future and Charles represents the present.
We should never say, oh, it should be different, because if it was, we wouldn't have William and Harry. And obviously, William is so important to the future of the monarchy.
I think when William becomes king, you know, God willing that he does become king, he will be very much more modern than his grandmother or his father. And I think he'll be much more the people's king. He will be very hands-on. He'll be very, very much more informal, which will be in keeping with the age, because I don't suppose William's going to be king for at least another 10 years. And, you know, life will have changed a great deal by then.
William was set to start his royal career from a very early age, being schooled in that sense of duty. He was educated at Wetherby School, Ludgrove School, and Eton College.
He had been a very outgoing little boy. At his first school, he was known as Basher Wills or Basher Wales, because he was, you know, quite stroppy and confident.
William's education was at Eton College. Eton College is probably the leading public school in England, and it's very traditional. William's mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, insisted that he went to Eton, as did her father and her younger brother Charles. Prince Charles acceded to this. He went to Gordonston, where he was thoroughly miserable and cried almost every time he had to go back to school, even as a teenager. And he allowed his sons both to go to a very elitist school. It's very elite, it's very expensive, it's very posh, if you will, but it also has a degree of freedom for the pupils. They are encouraged to be self-confident and to find themselves. And when William came there after being at Ludgrove, the prep school, people realized, as he had to sign in, every pupil signs into the book when they come, that he was left-handed. First time people realized he was a southpaw. And he was there, and he did very well. Neither he nor his brother could say that they were great academic shakes. They weren't. Eton was right for William. He enjoyed the sports. He enjoyed swimming, water polo. He loved playing football, soccer.
He took a gap year in which he visited Belize and Chile before earning a Scottish Master of Arts degree in geography at the University of St Andrews. It is clear for William that royalty is not just a privilege, but a duty, one that he would take very seriously.
I wanted to do something constructive in my gap year, rather than, I could do quite a lot of work, but I thought this was a bit more of a way of trying to help people out and meet a whole range of different people from different countries, and at the same time helping people in remote areas of Chile.
I think we're very much seeing a royal for the new century. Very relaxed, not stage managed, happy to josh a bit with his father in an informal way, but not scared to say exactly what he's feeling, and certainly not prepared to dodge the difficult issues.
There was no question in any of the gap year, actually, that he was a prince and treated differently. He mucked in, he slept in sleeping bags, you know, he cooked food around a campfire. He did everything that everyone else did.
Given the example that Charles had as an upbringing from an early age, like his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, joining the ATS from the age of 18, it was clear that Charles is to lead an example for William for when he becomes king.
From my father, I learned how central charity was to his life and his sense of purpose. The Prince's Trust is not an arm's length organisation for my father. He cares deeply about the Prince's Trust because it is a living projection of his values. As a young child, I recall evening after evening my father's diligence and compassion as he applied himself to answering thousands of letters and reading endless reports in order to stay on top of his ambition to do all he could to help the underprivileged. Without my realising it, what my parents were doing was instilling in me and Harry a lifelong habit to put charity at the heart of our lives.
Taking from his father's hard-working nature, he trained at the Royal Military Academy at Sandhurst and graduated from Royal Air Force College Cranwell, joining RAF Search and Rescue Force in early 2009. He was a full-time pilot with the East Anglian Air Ambulance from July 2015 for 2 years and performs official duties on behalf of his father, King Charles. William threw himself enthusiastically into school life, but he also felt that sports would be an area where he could devote his energies. He has been a fan of sport all his life and has attended numerous big events over the years.
William, I think, that time, those years, as a search and rescue pilot, he really felt that he did achieve something. It was a real job. There were no concessions for who he was. He wasn't wrapped up in cotton wool. But the time came where the tour of duty came to an end, and I think he left probably with quite a heavy heart. But he'd had a very, very good time there. And I think, you know, he'd absolutely achieved what he set out to achieve.
Well, when you're flying along at night in Snowdonia and other mountains and you've got 40-knot winds, the clouds down to about 200 feet, and you're trying to get through to find someone who's either broken their leg or is lost on the hill, it gets quite interesting. You have to use all four of you, put your brain power together and your skill, and basically hope that, you know, you can actually get there and help.
He's friendly, he's funny, he's, you know, always sort of joking and bantering, particularly with other men and with colleagues. And I think that was how he managed to be accepted so readily by colleagues both in the armed forces and in the air ambulance. He just, and in all the charities that he works for as well, they really love him.
Like his father's passion for the environment and arts, he holds patronages with over 30 charitable and military organisations. He undertakes projects through the Royal Foundation, with his work surrounding mental health, conservation, and emergency workers. He built his life in the honour of being an icon that many can look up to, just like his father Charles, in the hope that his work would always, one day, help and inspire someone to feel better. He took the title of Prince of Wales after his father ascended to the throne in 2022.
Prince William is involved with quite a few charities. One in particular, he's been involved in AIDS work and AIDS charities since he was very young. And of course, that came from a deep commitment that his mother, Diana, had to the cause. Prince William is also involved in several charities related to Africa. You know, Africa was very much a part of his experience between high school and university. And he went out there and had a gap year, as they call it, and really fell in love with the country. So he and Harry both actually have been involved in several charities in Africa as well. William is also involved very much so with a charity called Centrepoint, which is an organization that works to help the homeless. You know, Princess Diana originally kind of got both William and Harry interested in this subject by introducing them and taking them out to meet and talk to homeless people. She always wanted them to see there was another side to their very gilded life in the palace. And since her untimely out on the streets with homeless people just within the past few years. That's something that he's passionate about, that he cares about. I think it helps to give him perspective in the midst of his oftentimes very glamorous life.
There was a key moment in his life. It was in 2011. There had been a huge, devastating earthquake in New Zealand. And William said to his private secretary, "Is anyone from the royal family going down to New Zealand? Because if they're not, I would like to go." And his private secretary said, "You can't possibly do this. You know, you haven't got time. How are you going to work out? You know, you've got these number of shifts you've got to do with search and rescue." He said, "It's all right. I've sorted all of that. Just find out whether I can go, whether anyone else is going." So he did, and he went, and he stood side by side with people who'd lost loved ones, homes, businesses. You know, the scenes there were absolutely devastating. And that was the point at which I think William went from being a young man to a future king.
William continues to become a man that he hopes the public would proudly hold as king. As a result, it is important that his future children follow the role in which their father would set for them. William met his bride-to-be, Kate Middleton, in 2001 at St Andrews University in Scotland. After 7 years of dating, family life beckoned for William and Kate, and it was expected that the couple eventually marry.
It was at St Andrews where that friendship, because it was initially a friendship, flourished. William and Kate were at the same halls of residence at St Salvator's. They were on the same course in the same year. I mean, some people say, wasn't that just too much of a coincidence? But it was how things worked out. And they spent the first year as undergraduates really getting to know each other.
The people of St Andrews are a very close-knit sort of society, and they welcomed William with open arms, and they were very protective of him. And as a result, you know, he spent 4 years there as a pretty normal student.
I think the wonderful thing about St Andrews was it was a bubble away from reality. It was a life that Prince William had never been able to enjoy, whether it was going to the local shops, going to a local bar, going for his morning swim. He could get on with his life and his relationship in private. And I think the pair of them absolutely loved those years. They look upon those St Andrews years with great fondness, and they are patrons of St Andrews University because they feel such a strong connection to that place.
In his own words, it is time now for the big wide world. But today, William's family, like any other, well, almost, came to say a proud farewell to a place that has allowed him a more normal life than any royal in history. That he is deeply grateful is not in doubt. And partly, of course, it's been about this woman. They've been allowed to develop a relationship without front-page scrutiny, and it's helped.
Catherine Middleton. Jeremiah Pastor.
If she looked confident, he appeared nervous. William said he was thrilled his granny came despite being ill. And whilst his grandfather studied the form, she didn't look too impressed. But it was a different story when her boy stepped up to the plate.
William Wales.
I, Catherine Elizabeth.
Take thee, William Arthur Philip Louis.
Take thee, William Arthur Philip Louis.
To my wedded husband.
To my wedded husband.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
To have and to hold from this day forward.
For better, for worse.
For better, for worse.
For richer, for poorer.
For richer, for poorer.
In sickness and in health.
In sickness and in health.
To love and to cherish.
To love and to cherish.
Till death us do part.
Till death us do part.
According to God's holy law.
According to God's holy law.
And thereto I give thee my troth.
And thereto I give thee my troth.
Not only did Kate have this amazing persona about her, but like her husband William, she was also actively interested in campaigns to help the people around her. Together, they initiated the Mental Health Awareness Campaign, Heads Together, to encourage people to open up about their mental health issues.
Mental health matters to each and every one of us. It matters just as much as our physical health.
As William has said, we have heard time and time again in the course of our work how talking can help heal hidden challenges that we can't deal with alone. We have seen that two heads are better than one when dealing with a mental health problem.
They are loved by millions around the globe and dedicate their lives to the royal family, all while raising their own 3 young children, George, Charlotte, and Louis, who are all in line to the throne.
Well, William and Kate are determined to build a very happy home life for their children. I think that is of paramount importance to both of them. Prince William is a very loving, warm individual, and he and Kate have a very solid and affectionate relationship. They want that to translate to their children. His boy, his son, his daughter, they may grow up to be princes and kings and queens, but he wants them to have a great relationship with their parents and with each other. That's first and foremost going to be part of their royal upbringing.
Their relationship has grown out of being just William and Kate. And I think that that's something that throughout their married life, as much as they can, they will try and retain.
The United Kingdom follows a hereditary system known as primogeniture, which means that the throne always passes from firstborn to firstborn, not from sibling to sibling. This means that the next person in line to the throne after William would be his son George, rather than William's brother Harry.
I think he will be very much a king who knows his own mind. William is a very determined man. I think he's mindful of history and won't do anything extraordinary, but I think he's also very much more a man of the modern age and of the people than any previous monarchs.
George is the eldest son and child of William and Kate, making him second in line to the throne after his father. Raising a future king is a huge task, and it is therefore expected that he receives the best care possible for this to happen.
I think it's very much a sure thing that whatever sons William has will almost certainly join the army. That has been a royal tradition going back centuries. It's something that both William and Harry loved and seemed to get a lot out of. One tradition that may not continue, though, however, is boarding school. You know, William and Harry were sent off at a very young age to Eton. Although they probably will send George or their other children away to Eton, I doubt very much it will be at such a young, tender age. Bearing in mind that Kate Middleton did not grow up in a royal household or in a family where children were sent away at 6 to boarding school, I think Kate Middleton is going to find that particular royal tradition a very difficult one to follow.
George was born on the 22nd of July 2013 at St Mary's Hospital in London. His birth was widely celebrated due to the expectation that he will one day become king. 21 gun salutes signal the birth in Bermuda and New Zealand. The bells of Westminster Abbey and many other churches were rung. The landmarks were illuminated in many colours, especially blue, to signify the birth of a boy.
Kate was forced to announce prior to being 12 weeks pregnant that she was in fact expecting because she was hospitalized for very, very severe morning sickness. She suffers for something called hyperemesis gravidarum, which is a very somewhat rare form of extreme morning sickness. This goes way beyond the typical nausea and discomfort that most women feel. This is very extreme, where the mother-to-be is unable to keep down any solids or even sometimes liquids. It can be quite serious both for mother and baby. So women who have this condition, if they're not able to eat and drink, are oftentimes hospitalized and put on an IV to make sure that their health is maintained.
Obviously, there'd been an awful lot of anticipation as when Kate was going to announce that she was pregnant. I mean, in fact, I think the announcement was suggested for about 6 months beforehand. Everyone was writing in the papers that she was pregnant. The palace had put out the official announcement as she was en route to the hospital because she'd had problems with the pregnancy, and it was felt that William and Kate didn't want to even tell the Queen or Prince Charles that she was pregnant until they were absolutely certain everything was okay. So that's what happened. The actual announcement happened because she was feeling unwell and was taken to hospital.
William and Kate had talked at length about how they wanted to make this announcement to the world, and it certainly wasn't going to be this way and at that stage in the pregnancy. Most celebrities, particularly royals, wait until that first trimester is finished before they make any happy announcements.
They were holding the baby, and They just looked so beautiful and happy. It was really stunning. Yeah. I'll never forget it.
Well, the birth of Prince George was really like a national celebration. It felt like a national holiday. There was excitement in the air all around the country. It very much reminded me of the feeling of the royal wedding day when William and Kate got married. Everyone was universally happy. Everyone was constantly checking the news feeds on their phone and on the television in order to see, waiting for William and Kate to come out from the hospital for the first time, holding the new baby prince.
There was huge celebration over the birth of Prince George. I remember broadcasting for numerous international networks outside Buckingham Palace. Of course, it was the great Kate wait. I mean, we didn't know when this little baby was coming along.
Well, actually, I've covered the royal family for 25 years, and the excitement around the birth of Prince George has surpassed most of the things I'd covered, actually, even the royal wedding. It was a huge bun fight, if you like, outside the Lindo wing of the St Mary's Hospital, Paddington. There were hundreds of journalists there, as well as camera crews and members of the public.
I have several friends actually with news organizations who were standing outside the hospital that day, waiting hours after hour for William and Kate to come out. And actually, they came out quite a bit later than expected because typical William and Kate's strategy fashion, they were greeting and thanking every single member of staff at the hospital personally for the very smooth birth. They wanted to make sure they thanked everyone from the cleaner to the midwife to the surgeon to say thank you very much. So they did actually take a long time to emerge. When they did, Kate was roundly praised in the press for her choice of dress. You know, a lot of women when they first have a baby are very self-conscious about the fact that they oftentimes still look pregnant. They still have a very swollen stomach. Kate was not at all ashamed of this. In fact, wore a dress which highlighted the fact that she still had a very rounded tummy. And a lot of women praised her for this, said that it made a difference because it kind of just emphasized the fact that women don't need to be ashamed of their bodies when they've had a baby. And it was really a lovely thing that she did. She came out, she was absolutely beautiful and radiant. I'm sure she had some help with makeup and hair. In fact, we saw some of her stylists coming into the hospital before she emerged. So we know that she had a little help, but she did look fantastic, and they looked absolutely in love. As William and Kate were leaving their press call when they came out with the baby, he was seen to be very affectionate with her. He had his hand on the small of her back, and he called her Puppet. So we now know one of his sweet names of endearment for his lovely wife.
Very emotional.
Yeah, it's very emotional. It's such a special time. I think any parent, I think, will probably sort of know what this feeling feels like. So
Very special. Well, he's got a good pair of lungs on him, that's for sure. He's a big boy, he's quite heavy, but we're still working on a name, so we'll have that as soon as we can. But it's the first time we've seen him, really, so having a proper chance to catch up and see it.
George's education began in January 2016. At the age of 2, he attended the Westacre Montessori School Nursery. Given the nature of his parents' very stable relationship, it is important that George be raised in the same affectionate passion of his father. He attended his first day of primary school on the 7th of September 2017 at the Thomas's School in Battersea, and attended school under the name George Cambridge.
Even for a little boy who's used to the cameras, this was a step into the unknown. With mum Kate again struggling with morning sickness back home, at least Prince William was there to hold his hand and carry his bag. Looking rather nervous, Prince George managed a handshake with one of his teachers, who stepped in with some polite small talk, probably to help reassure Dad. For a 4-year-old who's already started learning the royal ropes, those who know their London schools think Thomas's is a good fit for him and the rest of the family. His son seemed less sure, a little boy who already has his future mapped out before he's even stepped into the classroom.
2 years later, a little sister was born for George. Charlotte is the second child and only daughter of William and Kate. She is third in line to the throne. However, as under the hereditary system, should Prince George have children of his own, they will overtake his sister in the line of succession. Charlotte was born on the 2nd of May 2015 at St Mary's Hospital in London. Her announcement didn't go to plan, as Kate suffered from severe morning sickness and was forced to cancel a number of public engagements. Having said this, the world stood as happiest as ever over the monarchy, with the prospect of a baby sister for their son.
Again, it's not what William and Kate wanted. They very much wanted the pregnancy to kind of go a little bit farther along before they confirmed to the world. But again, their hand was forced because of Kate's morning sickness.
Congratulations. Congratulations. How's Catherine feeling?
She's feeling okay, thanks. It's been a tricky few days, week or so, but obviously we're immensely thrilled. It's great news. Early days, but I'm hoping things settle down and she feels a bit better. But it's important that we all focus on the big news and the big international and domestic things that are going on at the moment. So that's where my sort of thoughts are at the moment. I'm going to go back and look after her now.
It's early days, but you must be very excited.
Thank you.
Some women get morning sickness not until 6 or 7 weeks in, but Kate seems to get it almost immediately and to a very great degree. So the fact that she was forced to start canceling appearances meant that the palace was forced to confirm the second baby was on the way. The nation rejoiced. Everybody's happy and delighted to see this beautiful young family grow and expand, and they seem to be very loving and caring and beautiful parents. Kate certainly looks as good or better as she ever did before she had her first baby, so it doesn't seem to be taking any kind of a toll, and everybody's really just happy for them.
Well, I think when it was announced that they'd had a little girl, it was a great cause of national celebration. Of course, a little sister for Prince George, the daughter that Prince William had always wanted, the granddaughter that Charles had always wanted, but actually, historically, a really important little girl because she will hold her place in the lineage of succession.
Her name has been officially announced as Charlotte Elizabeth Diana, honouring her grandfather Charles, great-grandmother Queen Elizabeth II, and her grandmother Diana. She started her education at the Wilcox Nursery School and also joined her brother at Thomas's School in Battersea, where she was known as Charlotte Cambridge.
Charlotte's birth certainly does herald the dawn of a new era for girl power in that we have a girl in a prominent position at the senior end of the royal family. Obviously, we've been used to the Queen, the ultimate exponent of girl power on the throne, but we face the prospect now of 3 kings in line, so we're not going to see another woman on the throne for many, many, many years. So how lovely to have Charlotte in this role, bringing up the rear. She's rather unkindly called the spare to the heir, as Prince Harry is, but as he has proved himself, it's a role that you can make your own, and I'm sure all eyes will be on Charlotte. In fact, there'll probably be even more scrutiny on her because she's female. I mean, how great to have the pitter-patter of pink feet in the royal line of succession.
William's got the princess he always wanted. Diana wanted a princess in the family. She's got her wish, he's got his, and Diana's been remembered in the process. So it really completes it. They've ticked all the boxes. And the other thing about Charlotte is it's the female of Charles. So they've really done everything.
Then came a little brother for the 2 royal children, Louis. William took his 2 children to the hospital when their brother was born. Born on April the 23rd, 2018 at St Mary's Hospital, he is 4th in line to the throne. On the 27th of April 2018, it was announced that his official name is Louis Arthur Charles, honouring his paternal great-great-great-uncle and his paternal grandfather, Charles III. The line of succession is a matter not taken lightly. It is therefore expected that those in line to the throne stand a good public eye. Queen Elizabeth II has died, and with Charles as our new king, the future is looking bright, given the nature of our future kings of Britain. The monarchy has evolved and has undergone a huge deal of change over the last 1,000 years. The line of succession is one that is looking sharp, but is also one that is bound to change. The examples of the previous monarchs continue to build strong relationships for the generations of monarchs to come. When the time comes,